the autobiography of Billy Graham. I have it, I've read most of it, and it is a phenomenal story. If you don't believe in God, read the book of Billy Graham, and you can't explain that kind of a life and a ministry.
Billy Graham was known worldwide as a pillar of faith, preaching to millions and shaping modern evangelical Christianity. But behind the public figure lay private journals and letters that reveal a man wrestling with doubt, political entanglements, and personal regrets that few ever knew about. What were the unexpected secrets tucked away in his private study? How did moments of crisis almost derail his ministry and change history? These hidden truths shed new light on a legend's humanity and the complexities behind his towering legacy. Hidden writings reveal inner turmoil. When Billy Graham passed away in 2018, his family uncovered something that shocked many: private journals and personal writings hidden away in his North Carolina study. These documents peeled back the public image of the confident preacher to reveal a man wrestling with deep doubts and crises of faith. For all the millions who heard his sermons, few knew that Graham's spiritual journey was marked by moments so intense they nearly ended his ministry. This contrast between the public persona and private struggles adds complexity to his legacy. Graham's writings disclose a side of him rarely seen: the vulnerability of an evangelist questioning the very foundation of his faith. He struggled with doubts about the Bible's truthfulness, especially during critical moments when he needed unwavering confidence. One such crisis came just weeks before a major Los Angeles crusade, threatening to shake his belief in the message he was about to proclaim. His journals show how this internal conflict weighed heavily on him, revealing a man who was not immune to spiritual battles. Besides questions of faith, the journals also offer candid reflections on Graham's most controversial relationships and decisions. His involvement with political figures like President Nixon, once considered an asset, became a source of personal regret and public criticism after secrets and scandals surfaced. The writings expose his private confessions about loyalty, betrayal, and the cost of mixing religion with politics, a balancing act that challenged Graham throughout his life. The personal regrets of Graham show both his spiritual and relational shortcomings. He felt deep regret about his life choices because he believed his behavior had led him to both break his core values and miss vital opportunities to defend urgent matters. The man behind the public image as a believer who never wavers from his faith shows through these statements. The audience should think about what preachers need to carry with them throughout their ministry. The discovery transforms Graham's life story from a simple success story into a narrative that shows his ability to endure through multiple difficult challenges. The journals show a man who works to balance his faith together with his personal weaknesses and his public obligations, which continue as an ongoing process. The research shows how difficult it is for leaders to maintain their roles when they experience constant public attention and high demands. Some people might find Graham's doubts unexpected, but his writings show how grace and renewal operate as powerful forces. He found ways to move past uncertainty, reinforcing his commitment to his calling even when the path was unclear. The research shows how his ability to show his weakness and keep going forward helped him create his lasting influence. The private writings that come to light provide additional insights about Billy Graham, who existed as both a preacher and a person who experienced doubt and faith and failure and redemption. The statements show that even the most powerful leaders experience intense doubt, which leads to moments that will change their historical impact. The true depths of Graham's inner turmoil and how he overcame it will come to light as we revisit the beginnings of his spiritual journey. Billy Graham's path to faith. Billy Graham's roots lay in a hard-working family on a North Carolina dairy farm, where discipline and perseverance were part of daily life. Born on a 300-acre farm near Charlotte, he was shaped early by the rigors of farm chores and a strict upbringing.
Well, I was born and reared about 100 miles from here and near Charlotte, North Carolina, on a farm.
His childhood was marked by hard work, from milking cows at dawn to milking again after school, instilling in him a relentless work ethic. that would serve him throughout his ministry. As a teenager, Graham was not the earnest preacher many imagine, but a typical boy interested in baseball and girls, far from religious devotion. An unusual event during his youth shaped his views on alcohol. After Prohibition ended, his father made him drink beer until sick, leaving Billy with a lasting dislike of alcohol. This early lesson in discipline and caution hinted at the personal convictions he would carry into adulthood. At 16, Graham's life changed dramatically due to a revival meeting led by evangelist Mordecai Ham. Though initially reluctant, having been rejected by a local youth group for being too worldly, he eventually attended, urged on by a family friend. At that meeting, Graham experienced a powerful spiritual awakening, sensing a direct call to faith. This moment ignited a lifelong commitment to spreading the gospel, transforming him from a skeptical youth into a devoted believer. This turning point launched Graham on a path he never imagined at first. The first years of his ministry work brought him various difficulties to overcome. He attended Bob Jones College, but faced difficulty adjusting to its strict environment and almost dropped out after one semester. The Florida Bible Institute became his new school because he needed both academic and spiritual support for his faith development and preaching practice, which included using birds, trees, and alligators as sermon materials. A defining moment for Graham came in 1938, at age 20, during a quiet night walk on the Institute's golf course. He prayed while kneeling to God about his future and made a commitment to follow God's will regardless of its required sacrifices. The decision he made at that moment confirmed his commitment to permanent ministry work, which he planned to use for teaching others about his religious beliefs. He received his Southern Baptist minister ordination in 1939, which marked the beginning of his religious work that would later impact many people. Graham's early journey started from low sources, yet brought him to significant religious understanding, which he pursued through dedicated effort. He established his future impact through his personal dedication to his mission work, which he performed with total commitment. His rural upbringing and early dedication to his work helped him develop into one of the most important religious leaders in the 20th century. People need to remember this because important legacies emerge from small growth experiences that people undergo when they confront unpredictable situations. Graham's journey from darkness to enlightenment and his struggle to succeed show how he became an important evangelistic leader. From these modest beginnings and spiritual breakthroughs, his ministry would soon expand far beyond anything he could have anticipated. Rise to global influence. Billy Graham's rise to global prominence was swift and impactful, beginning with his first Youth for Christ sermon at age 25 in Chicago, where he preached to over 2,000 attendees. This marked the start of a rapidly growing ministry. Over the next few years, Graham traveled across the U.S., Canada, and Europe, hosting events that combined passionate preaching with music and celebrity testimonies. His energetic approach drew massive crowds, with some events attracting up to 70,000 people. By 1946, Youth for Christ had over 300 U.S. chapters and more than 200 internationally, showcasing Graham's growing influence. In 1950, he established the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, laying the foundation for larger-scale initiatives. A major turning point came in 1949 during the Los Angeles Crusade. Initially expected to attract modest crowds, the event exploded in popularity after key conversions and media promotion from mogul William Randolph Hearst. Attendance soared to 400,000, and many made life-changing commitments. This success led Graham to embrace media, launching the Hour of Decision radio program in 1950, followed by magazines, TV programs, and films. His ministry reached global audiences, with offices opening in major cities worldwide. His international impact grew through his significant work during his international missions. Graham delivered a 12-week speech in London in 1954, which he presented to over 2 million attendees. He challenged racial segregation in South Africa through his 1973 public demonstrations, which included integrated seating at public venues, because he wanted to stop this practice, which brought him international recognition. His sermons reached even behind the Iron Curtain, including a notable series in communist Hungary in 1977. Graham became an early adopter of new technology because he established the first live satellite broadcasts, which allowed him to reach 185 countries at the same time during 1992 and 1995. His message reached tens of millions of people, while more than 2 million viewers participated in his broadcasts. He preached to more than 200 million people throughout the world who attended his shows until his retirement, while his biggest audience of 1.1 million people gathered in South Korea. Graham's crusades brought about life changes in people and whole communities, which went beyond their attendance numbers. Many participants experienced both healing and hope, which led them to become leaders themselves. His talent for bringing together people from different backgrounds showed how he could bring various groups together, which included people who held opposing views. This worldwide outreach expansion represented more than just an ambitious goal, because it demonstrated a deep dedication to spreading the Christian message to countless people, which established fresh benchmarks for how religious groups should conduct outreach and use media channels. As Graham's ministry reached new heights, the close political ties he developed would soon bring him face to face with challenges that tested both his faith and public image. Political connections and controversies. Billy Graham's close relationship with U.S. presidents, especially Richard Nixon, was one of the most influential yet complicated aspects of his career. Starting in the 1950s, when Nixon was a senator, their bond grew to the point where Graham was deeply involved in Nixon's 1968 presidential campaign. Far from being just a spiritual advisor, Graham wrote memos and strategized on how to court evangelical voters, blurring the lines between religious guidance and political maneuvering. Between 1969 and 1974, Graham visited the White House nearly 30 times and sometimes stayed overnight, lending both spiritual support and political counsel. He prayed at Nixon's inauguration and publicly endorsed him as a leader chosen by God, speaking on issues including the Vietnam War. One striking and controversial moment was Graham's suggestion of bombing dikes in North Vietnam to force peace talks, a proposal that could have caused severe civilian casualties, reflecting how far Graham's political entanglements extended. During the Watergate scandal, Graham remained loyal to Nixon, defending him publicly and refusing to believe the allegations of wrongdoing. However, when the White House tapes were released in 1974, exposing Nixon's dishonesty, Graham was devastated. He expressed profound betrayal, even breaking down in tears and becoming physically ill. This moment marked a turning point for Graham, forcing him to reconsider the extent of his political involvement and the costs of such close alliances. Decades later, further controversy surfaced in 2002 with the release of tapes from 1972, revealing a private conversation between Graham and Nixon in which anti-Semitic remarks were made. Nixon complained about Jewish control of the media, and Graham appeared to agree that it was a problem needing to be fixed. While Graham later claimed he did not remember the conversation and apologized for the words, the incident damaged his reputation as a unifying figure and raised questions about his genuine feelings and political compromises. Graham spent his life developing as a person until he openly admitted his political mistakes. In a 2011 interview, he expressed regret over these entanglements, stating he had crossed lines he now viewed as inappropriate. His experience with Watergate brought him to a fundamental realization about how religious faith should remain separate from political authority. He warned that politicians would use religious groups because they wanted to take advantage of others who believe in God. The most disputed event happened after Nixon's resignation, when Graham requested President Gerald Ford to pardon Nixon because he believed it would benefit the country. Graham visited Nixon to provide comfort, while Nixon requested Ford to approve the pardon. Graham maintained his support for the decision despite public outrage, because he believed it was correct, which showed his dedication to making peace during a time of national unrest. The political power that Graham exercised through his close relationships with politicians demonstrated his ability to operate outside church authority, but it brought dangerous risks to his work. His attempts to connect faith with politics created situations where he needed to define the limits of spiritual authority and political activities. The way he led his public existence showed both straightforwardness and puzzling complexities. His political alliances, while initially amplifying his reach, became a source of tension and reflection, showing that even spiritual giants must navigate the difficult terrain of worldly power. The lessons from these experiences would echo in his later years and resonate through the evaluations of his legacy. The delicate balance between Graham's spiritual mission and political involvement would further complicate his stance on social justice and civil rights challenges. Civil rights era challenges. Billy Graham's involvement in the civil rights movement was both courageous and controversial, blending progressive actions with cautious restraint. In 1953, during a crusade in Chattanooga, Tennessee, he made a bold statement against segregation by tearing down ropes that divided black and white sections.
He was not a white man. He was not a black man. He came from that part of the world that touches Africa.
This act, occurring a year before school desegregation, cost him some white supporters, but he stood firm, declaring integrated seating non-negotiable for his events. Graham's crusades began attracting more black attendees, encouraged by black pastors like Howard Jones, who urged him to bring his message to Harlem and Brooklyn. Despite facing hostility and threats from segregationists, Graham continued to diversify his audiences. In 1964, after the bombing of a black church in Birmingham, Alabama, he held an integrated crusade, protected by police from violent protests. However, many civil rights leaders criticized Graham for not doing enough. They believed his preference for calm persuasion over direct action was insufficient. When Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested during a 1960 sit-in, Graham urged obedience to the law, even if unjust, frustrating activists who sought to challenge systemic oppression. Graham believed that faith could change hearts, but many saw this approach as ineffective against racism's deep roots in society. Graham stayed silent about violent incidents, which included the 1963 Birmingham attacks against peaceful demonstrators, and he stayed away from the 1963 March on Washington, which created doubt about his dedication to the movement's urgent needs. His comments about unity sometimes seemed to suggest that racial harmony would only come with Christ's return, which discouraged immediate social progress. Graham's approach to caution developed from his political connections, which included his links to segregationist groups. The Selma protesters were condemned by him in 1965 because he rejected their methods, while he showed disapproval of violent acts and used his statement to doubt the success of nonviolent methods, which infuriated numerous activists. The relationship between King and Graham had times of partnership, but it changed when Graham refused to support political activism with stronger backing. Graham showed racial inconsistency through his actions because he followed King's order to focus on white listeners. He needed mixed seating arrangements, yet he allowed church choirs to sing in separate groups. After the Selma violence, he stopped discussing politics during his sermons because he wanted to preach about religious matters only. Graham felt that he should have achieved more during the civil rights work, so he later expressed regret about his civil rights accomplishments. The mixed results that he achieved on this moral matter show the conflict between his religious work and his restrained methods of pursuing social justice. His inner struggle during this period of American historical conflict demonstrates the complicated character of his leadership. As Graham's life advanced, his reflections on race, politics, and faith intertwined with his personal challenges and the twilight of his long ministry. Legacy and personal reflection. In his later years, Billy Graham evolved both spiritually and personally. Initially grounded in a strict fundamentalist background, he became more inclusive, inviting people from various Christian denominations to join his crusades. This openness, however, drew criticism from early followers who favored a more exclusive evangelical approach. His adaptability demonstrated a focus on unity and sharing God's love across divides. Health challenges, including Parkinson's disease, prostate cancer, and hydrocephalus, marked his final years. Despite these struggles, including declining eyesight and hearing, Graham continued his ministry with unwavering faith. His resilience reflected his deep conviction. Graham was also open about his imperfections. He expressed regret over his political entanglements, particularly his close ties with Richard Nixon. This self-awareness revealed a man who, despite his public stature, grappled with ethical complexities, offering a more nuanced view of his legacy. The marriage between him and Ruth Bell Graham became the most important event of his life. Their partnership, which began with love, communication, and prayer, brought them stability during his demanding ministry work. Ruth acted as both a secret keeper and a spiritual teacher who assisted Graham with his mission work. Graham showed personal doubts through his private journal, yet he maintained his belief in God through all of his experiences. His message became stronger because he expressed his struggles, which helped people understand him better. Graham showed both compassion and caution when approaching social issues. He maintained his traditional beliefs about marriage and abortion while showing understanding to others instead of passing extreme judgments. Graham established a worldwide impact through his preaching to millions while he transformed the beliefs of evangelical Christianity. His personal journey demonstrates that his public image hid a man who lived his life according to faith, resilience, and humility. Billy Graham's private writings uncovered a man who wrestled with doubt, politics, and personal regrets while leaving a global legacy of faith and unity. His life reminds us that even icons face struggles and evolve over time. If you found this story intriguing, please like and subscribe for more deep dives into the lives behind the headlines, and watch the next video shown on the screen, where we explore the untold stories of other influential figures.